Welcome to the Supreme Darkness double feature. This is Tom Box, and today I'll be talking about two strategies. One for you GX coin toss lovers, Arcana Force. And on the other hand, we have you worm type enthusiast, Tenyi. We'll break it down, reveal the high rarities, and push these old strategies to new heights. Alright, let's go. Arcana Force. A quick refresher, this strategy first debuted back in Light of Destruction. The key mechanic is that it uses a coin toss to decide the active effect of each monster, or have Light Barrier, the field spell, to decide the outcome of each toss, so you have control of your own fate. So let's take a look at some of these new cards. Firstly, Arcana Force 5, the Hierophant. You can discard this card this turn. Your opponent cannot activate cards or effects when an Arcana Force monster is summoned to your field. This is a blanketing protection against disruption when you summon out your monster, so they cannot respond to it, which is fantastic. It's really, really good. And I'll talk about the applications in 1 second. And across the board, all of these monsters have an on-summon coin toss trigger. So what happens when you summon the monsters and you toss a coin? Well, each of them have a heads and tails effect. For heads, for the Hierophant, you can special summon a level 4 lower Arcana Force monster from your deck with a different name from the monsters you control and in your graveyard. So a little bit of a double name restriction. It checks for both the field and grave, but it also has a level restriction. Now, what if you get Tails? Tails is also pretty good, I think, because you can special summon one Arcana Force monster from your deck to your opponent's side of the field. Yes, you're giving it to your opponent, but there's a lot of other applications by giving your opponent a monster. First of all, Infinite Impermanence cannot be activated from the hand anymore, and also they can't use Evenly Match. So there's like things that you can use to kind of benefit yourself and not let your opponent take advantage of by giving them a simple card on the field. So let's go back to the protection effect of this card. The protection effect is very similar to Branded Lost, and one application that Branded Lost had is when they paired it with the fusion summon of Mirror Jade, the Ice Blade Dragon, and on the summon they activated the quick effect of Mirror Jade so that they could banish a card. Notice that during that timing, most players would know that they could not respond to that Mirror Jade even if it is choosing to do the banish effect because it's on the summon of the monster. And based on the wording, it seems like this is the same thing. When you get that coin toss, although it is a trigger that's going to be your chain link 1, anything that you kind of chain on top of that likely will not be able to be responded to, giving you this kind of a free pass to activate your other effects to kind of tag along with the summon of your Arcana Force monster. So that is the thing that you can take advanced application to a whole new level just with this one piece there. On the other hand, if you do manage to flip Tails and you special summon some of the larger monsters, you can summon out, say, a monster like the World, for instance. You can use the Tails effect to kind of fetch out some of your bigger Arcana Force, higher level ones onto the field and put them into the graveyard so you can reutilize it later on. So that's some of the ways that you can kind of take advantage of that Tails effect as well. Next, we have Arcana Force 19, the Sun. This is a level 7 fairy monster with an impressive 2900 attack and defense, and very easy to special summon as well. And on top of that, likely going to be a 3 of in any Arcana Force deck. So how do you summon up this card? Well, as long as there is a card on the field with a coin tossing effect, you can special summon out this card from your hand. It does activate, so it can be disrupted in that case. But once you summon up this card, what's the coin toss? Quite simply, if heads, set a spell card from your deck onto your field that has a coin tossing effect. And that counts for both Arcana Force cards and non-Arcana Force cards. As long as there's a coin toss, it's going to be part of this. And Tails, destroy all cards in the spell and trap zones. So that does not destroy the field zone because that's in a different zone. So at least your Light Barrier will likely be safe. But since it's acting as a pseudo heavy storm, this is still a very powerful card, especially when you're going for the aggression. You're going to notice that the shift in Arcana Force is going to go for a much more aggressive attack-based strategy because all the stat lines are just ridiculously high, and you're going to see why very soon. Next, the boss, Arcana Force X, the Chaos Ruler. Although it's a fusion, it doesn't use polymerization. Instead, you must send 3 Arcana Force monsters with different names into the graveyard, but you can send it from either field. Much like a Chimera tech using machines from either field, this Arcana Force kind of lets you borrow your opponent's monster to fulfill this summoning condition as well. Now, if this card is special summon, toss a coin. If head, special summon a level 10 Arcana Force monster from your hand or deck, ignoring its summoning condition. This is essentially for Arcana Force X, the Dark Ruler, and the Light Ruler. Now, if Tails, you get to add 1 card from your deck to your hand that has a coin tossing effect. So either way, heads or tails, you're getting something beneficial. But on top of that, now on the field, it also has a continuous effect. While Light Barrier is in the field zone, your opponent can activate the effects of monsters on the fields, acting as like almost like a pseudo skill drain, more like a Majesty's Fiend to some degree. But it's only for on-field monster effects, so the effects from hand can probably still activate. But for the most part, since your opponent cannot activate their monster effect, executing most strategies is going to be very, very difficult if they're relying on monster as a form of removal for any of the cards on the field. Supreme Darkness will also be releasing 2 spell cards to support the Arcana Force, one being Light Force, a continuous spell card that has the following effects. 1, all your fairy monsters gain 300 attack and defense, kind of reminds me of the good old days of Yu-Gi-Oh! And then, of course, the second effect, you can discard 1 card to add 2 Arcana Force monsters with different names from each other from your deck to your hand. Also, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn, except for Arcana Force, and you can only use this effect once per turn. So this is once per turn. You can't just constantly add more and more cards. That'd be crazy, but you know, trading 1 card for 2 is already pretty decent. I guess that if you play Light Force, you have to kind of count that as a card as well, but in the long run, because this is a continuous spell, you can try to keep doing it over turns 3, turn 5, you know, you can just keep on going. Now, it does come with a little slight condition here where this card can turn itself off. If you don't have Light Barrier in your field zone, you're going to have to toss a coin. That's the trigger. You toss a coin. If you hit tails, then whatever I just mentioned, that's negated. So the only ways to kind of make sure this effect still works, 1, the moment you play the card is active. 2, you flip the coin, you hit heads, so everything is still active. You don't negate this card. And 3, you have Light Barrier on your side of the field so that you don't even meet the trigger condition during the standby phase, which is a mandatory effect. And therefore, if you don't toss the coin, the card remains active. And finally, we have Arcana Spread. This is probably my favorite card and one of the strongest cards to be added into the Arcana Force lineup. Now, aside from like the coin tossing part, which can be mitigated with the Light Barrier being on the field, if you flip heads, you can special summon out a level 4 or lower Arcana Force monster from your deck. However, if you hit tails, you can special summon 1 coin tossing effect monster from your graveyard. So that includes some of the higher level Arcana Force monsters, such as the World. If you actually think about it, you can pair off, say, the Hierophant to summon a monster to your opponent's side of the field, say the World onto their side. Maybe they'll get a coin toss in there. But the fun part is you can send it all into the graveyard to summon out the Chaos Ruler. Chaos Ruler, if you have the Light Barrier, you can summon out like perhaps the Light Ruler or the Dark Ruler. And then you can use Arcana Spread to summon back the World that got put into the graveyard. Guarantee the heads with the Light Barrier, or maybe you get lucky with the coin toss, and now you can just skip your opponent's turn. Take another turn. Why not? And then go into the battle phase without giving them a chance to set anything up. That sounds pretty good to me. So, you know, Arcana Spread is that our Monster Reborn-esque card that you can probably search for, because you can also search for this card with the Sun and set it onto the field, and being a regular spell card, you can immediately activate the card already. So there's a lot going for this deck. If you can kind of line it up and sequence it right, it could be very, very powerful. Now, you can also banish this card from the graveyard and add 1 card from your graveyard that has a coin tossing effect as well. So it does provide you with a little bit of recovery. Away from the Arcana Force and into the realm of the Tenyi Spirit, starting with the first secret rare, we have secret rare Spirit Tsuruya. Slightly different from the existing summoning conditions of Tenyi Spirits, this Tenyi Spirit, it's a level 4 Worm Tuner, and if you control a Worm monster or a face-up non-effect monster, you can special summon this. It's different from the previous Tenyi Spirits, where you have to control no effect monsters. Alright, and if this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a Worm Synchro monster, you can special summon 1 Tenyi Link monster from your extra deck, but it cannot be used as Link material, so you can't really just use it for Link climbing. Then you lose life points equal to its Link rating times 1,000, so yeah, it can get a little bit hefty, but it could probably be worth it because it doesn't seem like the Tenyi Link monster you summon out has its effects negated, and likely some people might go directly for the non-effect monsters anyway, just so they can kind of synergize with the next monster coming up. Tenyi Spirit Mula Adhara, a very impressive synchro monster. Recipe-wise, very simple. 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuners. Being level 8, it's pretty easy to synchro into these levels. Now, if this card is synchro summoned with 2 or more worm monsters in your graveyard or banishment, you can add a field spell from your deck to your hand. So that's kind of like having a usable terraforming. As long as you don't restrict yourself into just playing worms, you could probably use this to fetch into other impressive strategies. But on the other hand, this is a force to be reckoned with, because while a non-effect monster is face up on the field, it gains these effects. It cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects, it cannot be targeted by your opponent's card effects, and it can make a second attack. With 3,000 attack, that's 6,000 damage. And one monster that can quite quickly summon out a non-effect monster would be that Tsuruya. Tsuruya can summon a Berserker of the Tenyi. Sure, it's a Link 3 with 3,000 attack points, but it's a non-effect monster, so essentially you have 9,000 damage just from one quick synchro summon. So a very easy way to kind of kick off and kind of put the pressure on the opponent, or you can just clear the entire field and just attack for game, I suppose, because you have 9,000 damage. Speaking of field spells, we have Tenyi Infinity. When you activate this card, you could add a Vessel for the Dragon Cycle or one Heavily Dragon Circle from your deck to your hand. What does that really mean? Vessel lets you send a Worm monster from your deck to your graveyard, and if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can also add a Tenyi monster different from the one that you sent to the graveyard. So it's both a Foolish Burial and an add one based on the condition. On the other hand, you also have Heavenly Dragon Circle that you can add, which is a quick play spell to help you dodge effects like Effect Veiler or Infinite Impermanence or sometimes even Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. You get to tribute a Worm monster, you get to add a Worm monster from your deck to your hand. It's pretty simple. If you tribute a non-effect monster, you get to summon it instead. And it also has additional effects, I believe, when it is in the graveyard to help you add Tenyi monsters from your deck to your hand. So you're getting some really, really strong cards. These are some of the most powerful cards for the Worm typing. Now, what else does this field spell offer? You can tribute one Worm monster, target one monster on the field, and destroy it. This is a way to kind of clear off your own Worm monster that could be blocking your Tenyi monsters from being summoned from the hand. So you can clear it off yourself, or if you want to do a little bit of self-popping because you summoned out Yazi, so you can destroy your own Yazi. From there, you can summon out perhaps a different Worm monster as well. So these are some of the things that this field spell has to offer. And finally, during the end phase, you can switch Tenyi Infinity for Flawless Perfection of the Tenyi. You can place it face up into your field zone from your deck or graveyard. So I see that this field spell doesn't really offer you anything during the opponent's turn, but Flawless Perfection does. When your opponent special summons out one of their effect monsters while you control a face down or a non-effect monster, you get to draw 2 cards. But on top of that, all monsters that are non-effect are unaffected by monster effects. So it protects your Berserker the Tenyi essentially, and I guess other monsters. I guess it also includes your opponent's Nibiru token if you just so happen to give them a Nibiru token. But ultimately, drawing 2 cards doesn't sound too bad to me. That's it for my 2 strategy coverage for Supreme Darkness, the Arcana Force, and the Tenyi Spirits. If you guys enjoyed this video, smash that thumbs up button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell. We got the early box opening coming very soon. Looking forward to crack them open, and I'll see you guys there.